In 1982, a nurse from Canada named Cindy James received a strange phone call. At the time, she had no idea that he would be the beginning of a chain of events that would lead to years of brutal persecution, and end only with her death after almost 7 years. $1.5 million will be spent on the investigation of this case, an unprecedented amount at that time. Someone will consider Cindy just crazy, and someone will be a victim of cruel bullying. Cynthia Elizabeth Hack was born in the town of Oliver in British Columbia, Canada, on June 12, 1944th year. Her mother Matilda was a housewife, and her father Otto worked as an English teacher. After he retired from service in the Royal Canadian Air Force with the rank of colonel. Both parents were of Russian origin. She was one of 6 children. She had 3 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. Cindy spent part of her teenage years in the Canadian capital of Ottawa due to the fact that her father served in the Air Force. In her personal diaries, she wrote that her childhood was limited by her father's strictness, which often included corporal punishment. In adulthood, Cindy decided to become a nurse and enrolled in nursing school in Vancouver in 1962. At this time, my father was transferred to France, and he moved his family with him. The girl decided to stay in Canada and visited her family during the holidays. At this time, in letters to her family, Cindy occasionally mentioned a certain intern whom she met during her studies. She claimed they were even engaged. However, later, when the groom was found to have an incurable form of cancer, he committed suicide while skiing. At the same time, none of Cindy's parents, brothers or sisters have ever met this person. And Cindy never said his name. In the summer of 1965, Cindy met Roy Makepeace, a South African psychiatrist who was 18 years older than her. They were married on the 9th of December, 1966th year. The same year, she graduated from nursing school with a bachelor's degree. Cindy's parents were skeptical about marriage because of the couple's age difference, and her father believed that Makepeace took advantage of Cindy's naivety and credulity. Members of her family said that the couple's marriage was problematic and that from time to time, they were very emotionally estranged from each other. Although Cindy later made accusations of spousal abuse, Makepeace claimed that during their marriage, he only slapped her twice. Despite the fact that Makepeace was licensed as a psychiatrist in his home country of South Africa, he twice failed the certification for obtaining a medical license in Canada. Having forgotten his dreams of becoming a doctor in Canada, he got a job as an associate professor at the medical faculty of the University of British Columbia. Since 1969, Cindy worked as a nurse at the Vancouver General Hospital, where her husband worked at one time. In 1973, Roy got a job as Director of Health Services at BBC Hydro, a local electric power company. In April 1975, Cindy was hired as a group coordinator at Vancouver Blandhouse Institution for the Care of Children with Behavioral Disorders. She worked at Blandheim House for about 12 years and was noted by colleagues for her competence and professionalism. Cindy Makepeace seemed to be living a happy life, earning a living by doing something that brought her great joy. However, when Cindy and Roy decided to break up in July of 1982, when the woman had just turned 36 years old, her dream life had turned into a nightmare. At the end of September, she told friends and family members that she suspected that a robber was hiding near her house. Just 3 months after the breakup, strange calls began to arrive. The first such call came on the 7th of October, 1982. Although during most calls, the stranger just whispered her name, and one day after the conversation, she closed the blinds. After which the caller called back and told her that it was useless to hide, and he knows that she is now in the living room. Cindy's mother said that although her daughter did not want to discuss her experiences, she said that the people who called spoke in different voices, and in some cases, there was just silence on the other end of the line. Cindy described some of the calls as sexual and violent in nature. On October 11th, Cindy received a call accompanied by loud breathing, and the next day she received another call. in which it was said in a threatening whisper, "One evening I will get you, Cindy." She reported the obscene calls to the police. The police visited her house and continued to keep a list of all calls and their contents, and also offered to issue an unregistered number. Shortly after the officer left, Cindy got a call, and a male voice said, "You're a fucking bitch, I'm gonna get you." The next day, October 13th, the caller threatened her. "So you think calling the police will keep you safe?" "Wait, my zipper is undone, I'm talking with excitement." After these words, Cindy hung up the phone. But the calls were just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, Cindy reported that someone was hiding near her house, that a mysterious criminal threw stones at her window, then turned on the porch lights, and even broke into her house and cut her pillow lying on the bed. At the same time, nothing was missing in the house itself. She received a threatening message made up of letters cut out of magazines with the inscription, "Soon, Cindy." The stranger also disconnected her phone line. Vancouver Police Constable Patrick McBride suspected that the culprit was her ex-husband Macpeace, who, however, denied any involvement. Cindy herself made a contradictory statement regarding Macpeace, telling the authorities that she did not think he was capable of torturing her, but also told friends and colleagues that she suffered greatly from his cruel treatment of her during their marriage. On October 20th, 2 tenants who rented the basement of Cindy's house reported to the police that they heard strange noises upstairs on the first floor after the woman left for work. A neighbor told McBride that she witnessed a man standing near the house, entered through the front yard gate. The neighbor insisted that this man did not look like Cindy's ex-husband. At the same time, an affair began between Cindy and Constable McBride, which lasted about a year. McBride had recently separated from his wife and moved into Cindy's house on October 31st, 1982. She told friends that McBride offered to stay for about 2 weeks, helping to conduct surveillance in case the perpetrator arrives at the house. A few days after McBride moved into Cindy's apartment, he found Macpeace sitting in his parked car in the alley behind the house. The ex-husband had 2 loaded pistols with him. During the interrogation, Macpeace stated that he tried to catch Cindy's alleged attacker at the scene of the crime, and subsequently stopped monitoring after McBride informed him that he was now dealing with Cindy's case himself. In mid-November, McBride stated that one day he himself answered a call at Cindy's house when a mysterious person called. But then the caller didn't say a word. McBride initially suspected that the call could have been made from the airport terminal, as he heard a female voice of the public address system broadcast through the speakerphone system. However, the call was eventually traced to the Vancouver suburb of Richmond. Later, Cindy finds a note attached to the windshield of the car, on which there is an image of a corpse lying under a medical sheet. On November 28th, McBride noticed that the telephone lines near the house were cut off in 5 different places. Cindy, who remained cordial and friendly with Macpeace despite their breakup, sometimes invited him to her house in the presence of McBride. Since both men pursued a common goal to find the mysterious attacker and often discussed this case together. McBride left Cindy's house on the 1st of December, having lived there for exactly a month. They continued to meet with Cindy, often having dinner together in Vancouver and in Washington, USA. During the Christmas week of 1982, Cindy found a note near her house with the inscription "Merry Christmas" and photos of a woman with her throat cut. The photo was covered in red ink. According to the chronology of events published by the Edmonton Journal, the first physical attack on Cindy occurred on January 27, 1983. Her friend Agnes Woodcock came to her house to visit and found a woman lying unconscious in the backyard. A black nylon stocking was tied tightly around her neck. After regaining consciousness, Cindy told Woodcock that a criminal had crawled on her from behind as she was walking to the garage, and that this man had brought her to the garage, where another male subject was waiting for them, and they both rushed to strangle her. She claimed that the men inserted a knife into her vagina and threatened to kill her younger sister Melanie if she reported the attack to the police. Cindy failed to polygraph tests during questioning about the incident, and she admitted that she recognized one of the attackers but refused to give his name because he threatened to persecute her whole family next time. Doctors who examined Cindy after the alleged assault found no traces of sexual violence, and one of the detectives reacted very ambiguously to her statement. The police recommended Cindy to see a psychiatrist, but she refused because she was afraid that it would expose her to additional danger. Instead, she agreed to visit a general practitioner with counseling experience. On the 1st of February, 1983, Cindy decided to move to West Vancouver. Less than a week later, she received a threatening letter with the following content: "Run, rabbit, run. I'll show you how damn good I am. Soon there will be a bang-bang, and you will die." After a series of further obscene calls, Cindy moved house again in April 1900. Meek, who was constantly trying to reconcile with his ex-wife, showered her with several generous gifts in the summer of 1983, and paid for plane tickets to Indonesia so that Cindy could visit her brother Roger, who had been living there for a long time. A few weeks after returning from the trip, Cindy found another note dated August 22nd, which said "Welcome back. Death, blood, hatred, and so on." Cindy repainted her car in a different color, tried to hide her identity, and hired a private detective, Ozzie Cabin, to help her investigate the case of the alleged stalker. She continued to pay for Boer's services for the next 6 years. Cabin noted that Cindy made every effort to protect herself. For example, she carried a portable alarm button and always kept oil and pepper spray with her. In addition, the detective gave her a portable radio station so that they could always stay in touch. Nevertheless, the persecution continued. In October 1983, a year after the first phone call, she found 3 dead cats hanging from trees in her yard. There was a note tied to one of them that said, "You're next." In her personal diary, the woman accused Makepeace of destroying the garden in her backyard. She continued to receive numerous phone calls at home and at work, some of which were answered by her colleagues from Blenheim House, who informed the authorities that the caller was not talking, just silent. On January 30th, 1984, the Boer heard strange noises on the radio and immediately went to her house. He found her lying unconscious on the living room floor, and a note made up of letters cut out of magazines was pinned to her hand, with a paring knife. "Now you have to die." Cindy was taken to the hospital and, in a conversation with the Boer, stated that the last thing she remembers before she was found was that she saw a man walk through the gate to her house and then attacked her and hit her on the head with a blunt object, like a piece of board. She added that when she fell to the floor, the attacker stuck a hypodermic needle into her arm. Doctors found a needle mark on her right arm, but found no traces of any drugs in the woman's body. After the incident, Cindy passed a polygraph test, which allegedly did not reveal deception. However, the officer who conducted the test later stated that the results seemed inconclusive to him. In addition, there were no signs of forced entry in Cindy's house. A constable, Keo Nkoma, who came home to Cindy on the night of the alleged attack, said he saw round bloodstains on the kitchen floor, as if someone was trying to erase these traces. In February 1984, detectives began to interrogate Makepeace more and more often because Cindy admitted that she felt that he was torturing her. In addition, she said that during the marriage, he raised his hand against her a couple of times. During the interrogation, Makepeace suggested that Cindy's attackers were members of the mafia and were connected with her work at the Blenheim House, where children who were under the care of the court were often treated. In March 1984, Cindy's father Otto met Makepeace at a donut shop in Vancouver, where the police had organized a wiretap. Otto ordered his daughter's ex-husband to stop contacting Cindy. After this meeting, Makepeace wrote Otto a 6-page letter in which he outlined his theory that, in his opinion, the mafia was pursuing Indy, and urged Otto to put pressure on the police to start an investigation in this direction. In the summer of 1984, reports of cases of harassment of Cindy reached a climax. On the 18th of June, she called the wild boar in a panic, and he rushed to her house and found that she was hiding in the garden. Claiming that someone had broken into the house, the boar found her dog Heidi sitting in the basement. A note with the text "Happy Birthday" was pinned to the dog, and photos of a sexually explicit nature. It turned out that the dog had been beaten, and the boar noted that the rope tied around the dog was exactly the same on which Cindy found the corpses of cats suspended last fall. A cigarette butt was found on the windowsill in the basement. Cindy didn't smoke cigarettes of this brand. Cabin came to the conclusion that Cindy could not have staged this crime, and stated, "She would never have done this if she had been the same Cindy that I knew." Over the next few weeks, new calls were received, one of which the boar answered at Cindy's house while she was at work. A dead cat was found in the stairwell of her house. On the 1st of July, Cindy informed the detective that two men approached her front door, posing as police officers. But they disappeared when she contacted the boar on the radio. Cindy subsequently reported a series of further obscene calls, one of which was that the caller said, "You're already dead, bitch. It will be nice." Cindy's colleagues from Blenheim House also called and said, "Get rid of the big pig." On July 9, 1984, Cindy Tilly's mother spent the night at her daughter's house. In the middle of the night, Tilly woke up to Heidi barking and found Cindy checking the windows and doors on the first floor of the house. A few moments later, they both heard the doorbell ring and found that the window near the porch was cracked in several places. 2 weeks later, on the 23rd of July, Cindy claimed that at about 8:30 in the evening, she was attacked by an intruder in nearby Dunbar Park while she was walking her dog. The attacker was a bearded man driving a green van, which also had a female passenger inside. A few hours later, around midnight, she was found in a dazed state while trying to break into a neighbor's house. She was wearing a dark gray nylon stocking around her neck. Her dog Heidi was found by a wild boar wandering around the park. The woman was taken to the nearby University of British Columbia Health and Science Center, where doctors noticed 2 punctures on her right arm. While Cindy was being examined, the hospital's reception told authorities that a man with an accent called the front desk and asked about the hospital's security policy. When the police turned on the audio recording of Makepeace's voice, the hospital employee reported that there was a high probability that it was the caller. In October 1984, while under the supervision of a hypnotherapist, Cindy told about suppressed memories of witnessing a double murder, but did not disclose further details. The police tapped the woman's phone and sent officers to monitor her house. They were on duty in shifts. However, they stopped working after several months had passed without any further incidents. At that time, they had spent almost $1 million on the investigation, but they were no closer to finding answers. In January 1985, while under hypnosis, Cindy told the police that she witnessed her ex-husband kill a man and a woman, and then dismember their bodies with an axe while the couple was resting in a hut on Tormanby Island, near Stalked, in July 1981. According to Cindy, Makepeace smeared blood from the severed limbs of one of the victims on the face during the dismemberment. It was later revealed that Cindy's sister, Melanie, was with them during the vacation, but did not confirm anything of the kind. At the end of June 1985, Cindy was forcibly placed in the psychiatric ward of Lions Gate Hospital in Vancouver, after attempting suicide by overdosing on prescription drugs. Although she later stated that she was not going to commit suicide, on the 2nd of July, she agreed to allow the police to listen to a telephone conversation with Makepeace, during which she accused him of being the source of her problems and told him about the memories she told under hypnosis, about how he killed 2 people. During the conversation, Makepeace denied these incidents, calling Cindy crazy. After that recorded call, police assigned officers to watch Cindy, Makepeace, and 2 other unnamed suspects around the clock. In the end, the observation was discontinued because nothing unusual was observed. Authorities further investigated Cindy's claims regarding the alleged dismemberments committed by Makepeace, and found no evidence at the time of any murders or cases of missing people on the Persian Gulf Islands. In early July, Cindy received a package containing charcoal gray nylon stockings and a note. Blood flows freely. A few weeks later, on the 27th of July, she found a cosmetics container on the porch, which contained decomposed raw meat of a small animal. On the 5th of August, Cindy called the police station and reported a fire in her house. The authorities found pieces of burnt newspaper scattered around the room. The next day, Cindy reported another fire. On August 21st, at 4:45 in the morning, a third fire broke out in the basement of Cindy's house. When firefighters and police arrived at the house, they saw Cindy arguing with a private detective Boer. She said that she took the dog for a walk at about 3:15 in the morning, and when she returned home, she found a flame. The bathroom window was partially ajar, but there were no traces of soot and dust on the windowsill. The burnt remains of a newspaper were found in the bathroom. The detective investigating the fire later testified that, in his opinion, Cindy started the fire herself. In the fall of 1985, Carol Holliday of the police asked psychologist Anthony Marcus to interrogate Cindy and study various case materials. Holliday felt that Cindy had lied and staged her assaults, and that the various male officers who investigated them on her behalf had been deceived by the woman's beauty. Based on the materials of interrogations and the analysis of police protocols, the psychologist expressed his professional opinion that Cindy may have suffered from dissociative identity disorder that arose as a result of a traumatic incident in childhood. Although during the interrogation, he did not ask Cindy about her youth. On the 1st of December, Cindy moved into a new house in Richmond. 10 days later, on the 11th of December, at about 1800 hours, she was found in a semi-conscious state in a ditch about 6 kilometers from home, near the campus of the University of British Columbia. She was wearing men's work boots and one glove. Once again, the nylon stocking was tied tightly around her neck. Cindy was taken to the hospital with hypothermia. The doctors assumed that she had been injected with some kind of tranquilizer. There were also bruises and various cuts on her body. During the interrogation at the hospital, Cindy stated that she did not remember what happened, or how she got to the place where she was found. Her last memory was a lunch break during the working day, after which she went to the pharmacy. Inconsolable because of the feeling that the police did not believe her, she flew away for Christmas to her brother Roger in West Germany. At the beginning of 1986, Cindy officially changed her last name from Makepeace to her ex-husband's last name, James, hoping to further conceal her identity. To allay her fears, her friend Agnes Woodcock and her husband Tom sometimes spent the night at Cindy's house. On April 16th, the couple was woken up by Cindy, who said she heard a noise in the house. It turned out that another fire had started in the basement. When the couple tried to call the fire department, they found that the phone was not working. Tom ran across the street to a neighbor's house to call the police and, leaving the house, said that he witnessed a man standing on the street near Cindy's house. When Tom approached him, the man ran away. Cindy lived with the Woodcocks for several days after the fire. The couple noted that she refused to eat and repeated that her life was no longer worth anything. Alan Connolly, a psychiatrist who had been treating Cindy since January 1983, met with her and stated that although he had long believed her accusations of harassment, he feared that she was suicidal. Connolly placed her in the psychiatric ward of St. Paul's Hospital for 2 weeks, where it was noticed that she was suffering from anorexia and depression. She was subsequently transferred to Riverview Hospital, where a comprehensive psychological examination was conducted. The report noted the following: this 41-year-old woman at the initial examination turned out to be very withdrawn. She answered all the questions in one word. She refused to discuss a number of topics and did not make eye contact. On the second examination, her mood improved significantly. She passed the remaining tests herself and was ready to talk. She seemed to be afraid of how the tests could be used. She maintained good eye contact except when she was discussing horrific incidents. Then she would look down or close her eyes and speak haltingly. She expressed disappointment and cried a lot while talking about these incidents. The patient continued to ask if her answers to the questions indicated that she was crazy. Her IQ is significantly above average. This type of personality can be characterized as negativistic and conformist. Such people have an unpredictable mood, pessimism, sullenness, combined with social harmony and friendliness. These people tend to anticipate and provoke frustration with their obstructive and negative behavior. This type of person tends to be vulnerable to fears. After a 10-week stay in the hospital, Cindy was discharged. According to her father, she told him that she was hiding information about the alleged attacks, saying that she knew the identity of the attacker, but refused to give his name. In August of 1987, Cindy started working as a nurse at Richmond General Hospital on August 28. Her home alarm went off after someone broke a window. And 3 days later, on the 31st of August, she reported to the police that all the light bulbs on her porch had burned out. The following week, she reported that someone had used a glass cutter to make a hole in the basement door window. In February 1988, Cindy reported that someone broke a window in her house and then sealed it with duct tape. On October 11, 1988, Meek received 2 strange voice messages on his home answering machine. In one of the messages, a hoarse voice uttered the phrase, "Cindy will soon become a corpse." And another said, "More flavor, more depressants. One more thing after we finish. No deals." He handed over the answering machine recordings to his lawyer, as he did not trust the Ivankov police, who, in his opinion, could have chosen him as a suspect. 15 days later, Cindy was found unconscious in her garage. She was tied up, naked to the waist, and again a black nylon stocking was tied around her neck. Around the same time, the police hired a climber and a knot expert to analyze the knots on nylon stockings, with which she was often found tied up. The expert concluded that it was highly unlikely that Cindy would have been able to tie such knots on her own. In January 1989, the insurer Richard Johnston, from whom Cindy purchased a life insurance policy, moved into the basement of her house. She offered him a lease on the grounds that she would feel safer if someone else lived with her. On the 8th of April, a security guard at the hospital where Cindy worked found a note consisting of cutout letters that read, "Cindy's coming soon." And on the fogged windshield of Cindy's car, a finger was written, "Sleep well." After a report of an attempt to break into her home on April 29, the police used hunting dogs trying to track down the alleged attacker. But the dogs didn't pick up the trail. On the 10th of May, 1989, after another alleged hacking, bloodhounds were involved. We were able to trace the scent of an unknown person who climbed over the fence in the backyard of Cindy's house. For almost 7 years, while Cindy reported various incidents, the police spent from $1 to $1.5 million Canadian dollars to investigate her statements. However, something intelligible could not be found. Because of this, the authorities suspected that Cindy herself invented the incidents and staged them, as if she was the victim of a cruel stalker. Cindy expressed disappointment with the work of the police, with the exception of one detective, Jerry Anderson. In her complaint to the police, she separately noted Anderson for his patience, impeccable professional behavior, and exemplary investigation of this case. "He is the only employee I trust and with whom I feel comfortable." Around 16:00 on the 25th of May, 1989, Cindy received her salary. She talked to a colleague who reported that the woman was in a good mood, and said that there had been no suspicious activity in her house for the past 2 weeks. Cindy was last seen a few hours later buying groceries at the Savoy supermarket and visiting the Bank of Montreal at the Blundell Mall. Cindy was last seen at 19:59 at the ATM when she deposited money. On the same day, Cindy planned to install an infrared detection system in her house and was going to play bridge. with Agnes and Tom Woodcock, who were later to spend the night with her. Having not heard from Cindy, the Woodcocks visited her house at about 22 o'clock and found that the house was locked, and Cindy's Chevrolet Citation is missing. They talked to Johnston, the insurer, who informed them that Cindy had not returned from shopping. The Woodcocks drove to the Blundell Mall, which they knew Cindy frequented, and they found her car in the parking lot. There was no one inside. They went to the Richmond Police Department to report Cindy missing. Although she had only been missing for a few hours, given Cindy's reputation, a patrol car was dispatched to investigate. When examining the car inside the car, blood was found on the driver's door, as well as food and a packed birthday gift for her little son and her friend. The contents of Cindy's wallet were found under the car. A subsequent inspection of her house that night showed that everything was in order. The police noticed that the house was neat and clean and filled with numerous well-groomed houseplants. The Canadian Coast Guard has launched a search of rivers in the area, as well as in the Gulf of Georgia. A few days after Cindy James was reported missing, her tenant Johnston told police that a man who called himself her father called his office and asked about her life insurance policy. Johnston's secretary informed the caller that he would need to visit the office as private insurance issues could not be transferred over the phone. When authorities questioned Cindy's father, he denied ever calling the insurance company. On June 8, 1989, 2 weeks after the woman disappeared, Gordon Starczyk, an asphalt worker, found Cindy's body in the backyard of an abandoned house at an address in Richmond. The woman's body was tied with a rope in the fetal position, and a black nylon stocking was tightly tightened around her neck. Cindy's right leg was lying under a bramble thicket, and her coat was lying next to her body. Where her remains were found was on a busy street, near an intersection where pedestrians often walked. On the exterior fuel tank of the house, the police found graphite written in orange spray paint that read, "Some bitch died." A line, painted on the ground with the same orange paint, ran from the fuel tank to the place where her body lay, encircling it. Inside the abandoned house, another graphite was also found with the inscription of the diabologist anatomist Sheila Carlisle, who examined Cindy's body at the scene, noted that her hands were tied so tightly that one finger scratched the other to the bone. On the inside of the right elbow of the body, there was a puncture mark left by a hypodermic needle. Based on the activity of insects and larvae on the remains, the forensic entomologist concluded that the process of decomposition of the body began at the place where it was discovered, on the 2nd of June 1989th year. The autopsy showed that Cindy died from multiple drug intoxication with a significant amount of morphine, diazepam, and flurazepam. The toxicology report showed that there was a dose of morphine in her bloodstream that exceeded the lethal dose by 10 times. Based on the examination of the contents of her stomach, toxicologist Heatherden reported that Cindy orally took about 20 pieces of 30 mg flurazepam tablets in addition to numerous other pills, the combination of which in itself was fatal. It was not possible to determine the method by which morphine was administered, which confused the pharmacologist who analyzed the toxicology report. Traces of morphine were found in Cindy's stomach, although Dr. John McNeil stated that this amount could have been the result of an intravenous injection of the drug. According to McNeil's analysis, if Cindy had received morphine by intravenous injection, she would have lost consciousness within minutes and died within hours. The police, based on the assumption that the woman had fabricated her numerous previous statements about attacks and harassment, assumed that the cause of Cindy's death was suicide or an accident. This was quickly reported by several local tabloids. Private Detective Cabin visited the morgue to examine the body on June 10th, and I noticed that her remains have cyanosis. Post-mortem settling of blood, apparently on the skin, on the left side of her body. Since her body was found lying on her right side, the boar assumed that she could have died elsewhere, and that her body was moved to where it was found. The memorial service for Cindy took place on June 14, 1989, 2 days after her 45th birthday. The police watched the memorial service with hidden cameras, recording the faces and numbers of all those present. Her ex-husband Roy Makepeace was not present at the event. That same summer, the abandoned house where Cindy's body was found was demolished. In the spring of 1990, an extensive investigation of Cindy's death was conducted in Bernaba, in which 5 jurors participated, and the testimony of more than 80 witnesses was presented. The investigation was originally planned to last 3 weeks, but as it progressed much more slowly than expected, another 21 days were added. The investigation, which lasted 40 days, became the longest and most expensive in British Columbia at the time. Among the evidence presented were 2 recorded phone messages that Makepeace received on his answering machine. During his testimony on the stand, Makepeace made various accusations against Cindy's family, claiming that her father had physically abused her throughout her childhood and that one of her brothers had harassed her. He also accused the police of trying to frame him. It also turned out that shortly after her daughter's death, Cindy's parents found a stock of various medications in her house, including sedative antipsychotics prescribed by her psychiatrist, which they got rid of by flushing everything down the toilet. Her younger sister Melanie also found a medical syringe in Cindy's Steckler's purse, as well as a urinary catheter and saline solution in her bedroom. The jury was presented with graphic footage of Cindy's decomposing corpse found at the scene, as well as numerous reports detailing her mental state that led to her death. The testimony was provided by several psychiatrists and psychologists, including those who personally treated Cindy for many years. Dr. Paul Thermason testified that, in his opinion, she suffered from a hysterical personality disorder, while Dr. Wesley Friesen, Cindy's longtime psychiatrist, stated that he suspected she had borderline personality disorder, with elements of post-traumatic stress disorder. According to Friesen, Cindy had a huge rage towards her father, and based on their many sessions, Friesen believed there was a high probability that her father sexually abused her when she was a child, although she never talked about it. Attempts were made to find out whether Cindy could bind herself in the state in which she was discovered, using nylon of the same length. Not expert Robert Chisnell demonstrated in court how she could tie herself up in 3 minutes before the drugs she took effect. Otto Hack's father James later recalled that the police did not investigate the possibility of murder, but focused on trying to prove that the daughter committed suicide. There are still countless questions about the fact of Cindy James' death. If she was planning to commit suicide, then why did she buy groceries and go to the bank? If she faked all the phone calls and threatening notes, how did she get them when other people were around? The official investigation ended on May 25, 1990, exactly 1 year after Cindy disappeared. After deliberation, the jury could not determine what was the cause of Cindy James' death: suicide, murder, or accident. In the end, it was decided that Cindy had died from an unknown event, and the case was officially closed.